Going on, family? Let me know if y'all can hear me loud and clear down below in the comments. If you're able to, I know some people watch me on a 85-inch at home. So if you got me on the big screen, hopefully I don't look too bad. But just highlighting everything. But yeah, this wasn't intentional either. So don't think nothing about no daggone Saratoga water. It was just some free water that they had. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Would love to hear from you. I see Marlon down below. Hello. You see how quickly I got that video out, Crystal? See how quickly I got, or is that Kenny? Is it Crystal or is it Kenny? Or is it Ken? Is it Kenny Crystal or is it first name Crystal? See how quick I got that video out. Folks don't think I checked comments. Folks think I don't check comments. All right, dang. Someone that actually listens. We'll get started here in the next about 5 minutes or so. The reason I started at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time is because, you know, it gets a little bit darker earlier in the fall time. And I said, man, like everyone does all these lives so late. And sometimes, you know, how would I feel on the other side? You know, you can always rewatch, but I know people have families. You know, I know my audience here on YouTube and people have families. They're doing other things. So I wouldn't want to be on a live on the East Coast at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. So push it up about 30 minutes, give people a chance to kind of tap in here. So I may use this time. I don't want to spend too long just having y'all wait because y'all just came here for the information, but I typically give about a 10-minute buffer or so. So if there's any, maybe I'll take this like beginning time. If there's anything in the comments you'd like to know about me, like how'd you get started or anything like that, just to get to know me a little bit more, you're more than welcome while we wait. So it's just not idle time. So you're more than welcome to ask in the comments. If you're tuning in here for a replay, you're more than welcome to skip ahead to where I shrink the screen and pull up the first scheduled events that we talk about. So we'll get started here in about 2 minutes. About 2 minutes at 3:45 my time, which sounds crazy. So if y'all are not on the West Coast, you're like, dang, it seems bright over there. Yep. Looking out at the strip, watching Shador play today in Vegas. It's an awesome sight. If they win, I think that's just going to be such a great story. Whether you watch football or not, I'm just a big fan of rooting for, whether you like football or not, rooting for just someone just want to chase after their dreams, you know, and all odds are against them, right? It is a true life. I didn't understand it until I got over here. It is a true life hack. Like, you know, it feels like the days are so long and I'm like, what do I do with all this time? I wake up at 5:30. The market opens at 6:30 over here. I'm done trading by like 8:30. Maybe I go play some golf, handle some client work. And I'm like, golly, it's only like 11 o'clock in the morning. What am I supposed to do for the rest of the day? Especially when it gets summertime, because it's like it doesn't get dark out until like 9 o'clock. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So it gets dark here a little bit earlier, around 5-ish. So it's also very interesting. I've been here in Vegas we got 1 more minute. Vegas, for those that didn't know, I live in Vegas. But I was in Dallas for about 8 years. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, born and raised, went to undergrad at Morehouse College in Atlanta, played college golf there, grew up an athlete, right? All sports, baseball and football were my primary sports. I majored in chemistry in undergrad. So I went through the traditional route. So I think that's why, like, I feel like I relate to a lot of people, is because I don't have this just forget everything entrepreneurial story. It's kind of just this route that I went on that everyone's gone on, but I just decided to take like the leap of faith and follow essentially what my calling was, which was to coach and to teach and to educate on the skill sets that I've acquired. There was way more than just medications behind a counter. So I went to pharmacy school in St. Louis. So as this platform grows, which has been growing tremendously, I don't know if y'all been seeing the numbers, but growing tremendously. So not a lot of new people here. The doctorate is real. I feel like, you know, no one's ever asked, but some people are like, why does he call himself Dr. B? Because I have a doctorate in pharmacy. Okay, so there's the 2 cents about me if you ever want to know. Cool. All right, let's jump into it. I don't need to drink too much water because on a live, I've never had to get up and use the restroom. So let's not let it be tonight. All righty. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our Stock Sermon Sunday. This is our weekly market analysis where we touch on the overall market. A lot of you are coming from my videos, or you've been referred here, or you're inside of our community, inside of Leverage University, and you just check in really quick. So I want to speak to anyone on here. I will give an itinerary, as I always do, because I always have a new person that maybe shows up and it's their first time. So I want you to feel welcome. The chat box is down below if you are on your phone or a tablet device where you can chat. If you've got me up on a big screen on the TV, that is perfectly fine. You're more than welcome to just watch and maybe comment later or ask any questions. And throughout this video and before we start as well, right, I want to start getting a way for me to connect better with the people on YouTube, right? This is not forcing you to join Leverage University or to pay me or do anything like that, but it's like, where can we go to like feel like we're a part of a community or connect, right? So after this video, there'll be a link down below. I just added our free newsletter onto WAP. So if you go onto wap.com//Leverage University, where some of you maybe clicked and said, do I join? Like, okay, maybe I'll watch them a little bit longer and see what's going on, right? You can join that newsletter, right, for free, and it will add you into our WAP platform. So you can get the notifications when I go live, when there's a discount or whatever, or if there's an offer, if you have questions, right? You don't feel like you have to comment on the YouTube video or email me or DM me. I'm not getting back to you as quickly. So you can feel like you're a part of the Leverage University family. All right. So make sure you do that. Tanvir, maybe this is your week to join us inside. Crystal, maybe eventually. Right. So anyone that's like, man, this dude's calling us out by our government names up in here. I'm just trying to come on here to watch. That's just my nature. Y'all get used to it. So thank y'all so much for coming on the support of the channel. I appreciate the kind words. YouTube can be a crazy place sometimes. And it's been awesome just to see the kind words. All right. Well, let's jump into it. Itinerary tonight, as usual. I want to go over the fundamental analysis. So that is our news, our data, our earnings that we have for the week. And then finally jumping into the technical analysis, which is the charts, which a lot of you have been getting a hang of, getting the gist of, all those things. Government names, what's going on, Billy? So I appreciate you. So we'll go over the charts. If there's any questions down below, if you have a long-term investment, you have shares in something, you want me to take a look at something and I don't cover it, go ahead and put it down in the chat. I want to check the chat periodically through this live. We'll spend about an hour together. I'm trying to get more condensed here. So the more you get used to it, the more that you come on here more frequently, we're going to roll through these. I know some lives and some Sunday analysis can be 2+ hours. I wouldn't want to be on a live for 2+ hours. You want to come in, get the information, get out, right? So let's make it quick, to the point, get your questions, get ready, get your charts up, all those things. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into the data for the week. All right. Now, first thing that you need to notate if you're taking notes is we have a short week. All right. So as people have, like, I know Billy, this is like 1 year anniversary of officially trading, putting money into Robinhood and starting to trade and figure out this thing. Congrats to my boy, Billy. For the ups and the downs, and now finally like getting in tuned and really intrigued in this. And if that is you as well, it's an awesome journey. So document that like 1 year in. That's a big milestone as people think that they've figured this thing out within 2 months, 3 months, right? 1 year full, you can really get a sense of what a January, February looks like trading, what a like March, April drop may look like because of taxes and things of that nature, what a summer looks like in a bull market. And then what this year was completely different, but what typically in August, September, and October look like. And this is not a normal November either. So in my opinion, as I've said over the last year or so, if you can trade in this Trump market with this volatility and you can trade with things going all over the place, you can trade in any market, right? So this will only get better from here, which is why I'm so adamant about, man, Brian, you need to jump on this and start teaching and educating and sharing this information, because it's only going to get, if you can get a year plus 2 under your belt, and by the time, you know, this presidency and whatever happens next, you're like, oh my goodness, I've been through it, the ups, downs, in betweens, right? I can trade anything. So This week is a short week, Thanksgiving week, so take note of that. We do not have the stock market open on Thanksgiving Day. So just, if you already knew that, that's awesome. And on Friday, it is a short day. It's like a half day. Okay, so we really only have 3 days of trading. Now, I will say, how do you trade this type of week? Some traders, right, might take off the week. They're like, hey, I'm gonna enjoy time with family. I'll just check the market out, see if there's any buying opportunities, take it easy, and start the month of December. So if that is you, that is awesome, right? I do think there's still some opportunity because we have a lot of volatility, right? We're at this pivotal point in the market where we have, it could drop more, or do we bounce, right? So there's still a lot of big movements, which creates a lot of money making opportunities. So my suggestion for you, if you are trading this week, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, okay, I think personally the Monday, Tuesday, if you can find some solid trades, if we're inside of Leverage University, or if you decide to join before the start of tomorrow, I'll see you in live trading tomorrow. But if you're trading on your own, just be mindful of lowering your position sizing, okay? Lowering your position sizing. So if you're going into a trade and you decide to take a trade and you're like, man, I'm going in 10 contracts, and just say each contract is $100. So you put $1,000 in, right? Cool. Just lower that down a little bit, right? Maybe $600-$700 into the position, right? Because the risk, you don't have as much time based off the potentially low volume this week. So think about all the big money makers, think about the hedge funds, think about Wall Street, right? Everyone's kind of going on this Thanksgiving cool down, but there's still going to be momentum and movement in the market, right? So just think about it from that perspective, is that you're in here trying to find these things and then you're like, why isn't it moving? Or, why isn't it going, or whatever it might be, is because it's a short week. Everybody good with that? Okay. So we'll find some trades. I think there's still some good ones set up for Monday, Tuesday, but if I can get majority of my profits and some good trades solid on maybe mid Monday morning, tomorrow, Tuesday will be like my opportunistic time. And then because Thursday is closed, I want to take it easy on Wednesday, right? Because especially if you're trading weekly contracts, right? You wake up on Thursday and it's like, man, like I kind of want to get back in to make up my trade, or I got to wait till another day on Friday, and you don't know what's going to happen on Friday. And that's also a short day, right? So just be mindful of swinging those contracts. Go ahead, take your day trades, cut your losses, take your wins, whatever it might be. Everybody good? Just wanted to get that out there right away, just in case you didn't understand. All right. So on the docket here is our calendar for the week. Now we still have some data reports that are looking like they're starting to come out. All right. So if this is going to be true, we've got Monday here. Nothing really red on the docket here. We got a budget. That doesn't really matter. But budget balance, anything that says tentative, right? Anything that says tentative is typically not going to come out. Okay. Now on Tuesday, it looks like we might get these PMI numbers. You see that red calendar there. So if you've never seen this, forexfactory.com/calendar, you can see what is in importance. If you're a visual person, the red, and it says USD. So PMI comes out before the market opens. I personally like when data comes out before the market opens, because I can read into it, get a sentiment. It's not like right when the market opens. I got to wait and see which direction we're going. So we'll kind of get a sentiment on Tuesday, which is why I just said that Tuesday could be that opportunistic trading day. All right. Let's see, anything else? Fine. That's after hours. And then Wednesday, looks like we'll get some unemployment claims. So some more jobs data that might be coming out as well. Preliminary GDP is also important. So PCE, so that's tentative. So it looks like GDP numbers and PMI, if those do come out, just pay attention to the market open prior to about an hour before. Okay. So these are on West Coast time. So this will be, if you're on the East Coast, that will be an hour before the market opens. All right. Cool. So now we've got a sentiment, right? Reading the data, that we have a couple of data reports that could move the market, right? So still good trading opportunities that could potentially present themselves. All right. Let's jump into our, let's go here. And if you're not following me on Twitter, you're more than welcome to, or X, right? If you don't, whatever your beliefs are, if you don't support it, that's cool too. I know people are really, in their feelings these days about on different platforms. So Let's go here. Let's go to earnings and should pull right up. I think we got a couple earnings. I forgot which one. Yeah. So we got Zoom. That should move a little bit. Maybe I'll check it out, but not really interested. A&F and Alibaba, those could be interesting if you've never seen some of the retail sector stocks. Abercrombie and Fitch, we talked about this back in 2022. If you don't know my story about that, I've always worked in retail. I worked at J. Crew as the men's shop, and I was one of their tailors / stylists in there. So if you see me just dressed down now, like don't get it twisted. I could put on one, okay? So I used to work at J. Crew with those side jobs that you had in college and in pharmacy school. So what I notated about Abercrombie and Fitch is, why did Abercrombie and Fitch get this huge just like, what, man, Abercrombie and Fitch, they used to be the cologne, and it smells like a men's locker room. It's because they got J. Crew's stylist and designer, right? So that is the reason that the stock just absolutely just catapulted from $20 to roughly about $180, almost $200. It's because they got a complete overhaul and started to include everyone, right? All different shapes, sizes, creeds, colors, right? And you've seen that their style. If you've never been into an Abercrombie as of late, go check out a store in your local area and you'll see the vibe has completely changed. All right. So Abercrombie, very interesting. As always, check out their earnings. Dell, that is probably going to be the main one in my opinion, and Zscaler. CleanSpark, I'll watch as well in the crypto space, but nothing that I'm really interested in trading on this. Just kind of interested in seeing, how the company's doing. All right. So there's your earnings report. Okay. Let's jump into our charts. Okay, let's jump into our charts. Now, before I do that, I want to touch on the sentiment, because a lot of you have been watching my videos as of late, and I want to put this here for just a second. Okay, so many of you have been watching my videos on a regular, and you've been seeing that I've been giving this sentiment. Okay, now what's driving the market lower? There's still a bearish sentiment when we get into the chart. So I just wanted you to notate that the sentiment that I'm developing is still a quote unquote bearish sentiment. Well, Brian, we've pulled back so much. Can we potentially rebound this week? There's a catalyst that needs to happen for a rebound. And those catalysts can be that PMI data or those unemployment claims. So that's why that data matters, is because if that data comes in a little bit good, kind of like on Friday, we could have that little spur higher, right? But I'm still keeping in mind that we still have bearish sentiment. Does that make sense? So you don't want to come into this week saying, hey, we're still bearish. Okay, I'm going to enter some more puts, right? We could, when we get on the charts, go a little bit higher. And I'm going to give you some levels to showcase that we are still in bearish sentiment. And then, Brian, what are the levels that will switch us back to a bullish sentiment? We good? Okay. So at this time, go ahead and put your respective stocks down in the chat if you want me to take a look at something, and we will go over those periodically. All right. So let's give a S&P 500 sentiment here. I'm going to start on the weekly time frame, as I always do, and go over these levels. Okay. Clear it up. I love making the weekly videos because I feel like when people jump on here, they feel like they've already heard me say this, but if you haven't, that's cool. All right, we're going to start off with candle structure and location, as we always do. Candle structure is the first thing we want to notate. We're working from right to left. This candle structure is still bearish, okay? You can see here that is the bar or the body of the candle is kind of indecisive. We've got a equal top wick and an equal lower wick. Right? There is not really an extensive bottom wick that shows more buyers, and there's not an extensive kind of top wick and a small body that shows more sellers. So it's kind of in between, which is why I just said that based off the fundamentals and the technicals, any positive could just pull us and we can start reversing just slightly. Okay. But if we take a look at that weekly candle, right, we are still bearish as long as we're below this previous tariff high, right? I keep saying that, reiterating that, which is roughly around 673 at this point. Okay. And I'm gonna give some micro levels as well. Okay. So as long as we're still below that previous week's candle close high. I'm gonna even mark this wick as like a top end level. Just in that zone is still bearish. Okay. So when we get into the lower time zones, you can see that you don't get kind of faked out or, think that we're quickly reversing just because you see green. Okay. So as long as we're below this level, it's still going to be bearish, and any pop is going to be a fade lower. All right. So let's jump into the daily candle. Okay. And those levels are staying there, as you can see. So yeah, you can trade calls, right? If you're savvy enough to jump in really quick and get your scalp and whatnot. But as you've heard me reiterate, holding long calls right now, pick up your dip. Cool. If you want to try some long calls, light size, just in case there's good news and we rip, it's like, Brian, I should have bought long calls. Like, why did I listen to you? Do as you please, right? I like confirmation first personally, especially if you're going to swing. Like I said before, I think this is still a day trader's market. It's a share buying on the way down, DCA, but swinging long dated calls right now, unless you got a leap out or something like that on our big tech stocks, the S&P 500, is kind of like a lotto, in my opinion, right? Because at any point, if there's positive news, you're like, see, I told you, and we get a big green candle like that. I'm like, great, you win. That's fine. I'll wait for the pullback, and we're bullish. We pull back to here. Cool. I'll take my entry there. All right. Very similar to everyone that NVIDIA earnings. It's like, man, see, I told you, back to all-time highs, blah, 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 blah. Right. And like, cool. Great for you. I will short the market in the morning. Right. Why are we in competition of who's right or who's wrong? Right? It's just wild on the internet. Okay. So let's look at this candle structure right here. Same thing. It's just a green candle, right? But just because it's green does not mean that it is bullish, right? It is indecisive. There's a longer top wick, smaller body, and then kind of an equal bottom wick. So still indecisive. And just because it's green does not mean it is bullish. It is kind of trying to find its footing on the overall market, and buyers are trying to get that momentum just to get something on their side. Okay. Let's jump into the 4 hour. And this is where I want to turn on my after hours, extended hours here, and get a better gist. Okay. So again, the light gray area, just in case I have some newbies or people that are going to be rewatching this, the light gray area is when the market's closed or when the futures market is open at this time and it's moving after hours. The dark black area is when the market's going to be open for options trading in the New York session. Okay. So my level is still marked here. So you'll see I've in the morning or tomorrow, tomorrow and in the morning, is that we could have green continue like this, and we could slowly move up and maybe you get a little quick scalp. That's fine, right? If you want to trade the upside, that's fine. But again, if you don't have your levels marked, look where we're trading right into, right? That tariff high. Okay. So that tariff high is going to be very important, is that we could set another trap up here and roll right back down. Right. Do you see that? So that's why I'm just cautioning people on the call side right now until we get confirmation. Okay. Now there's some micro levels that I want you to watch, which is the previous day high, which is going to be right here. Okay. So we want to go ahead and mark that, the previous day high, which is 664.52. Okay. So if it breaks above previous day high, cool. We could trickle up into probably that psych level, right? That psych level of 667. Okay. And maybe even 668. So I'm marking that as kind of my pivot area that I may want to watch. Right there. And then previous day high, which would be right here. Okay. Now, Brian, what do you mean by pivot area? That simply means that this area right here is kind of, less confirmed, right? Because we already did a big macro view of this whole zone of roughly 670 to 673, right? That big zone is where we know that we can confirm sellers are very heavily present. These are kind of micro areas where we could reject. You see right there, we could reject right there. So I may get interested in this area if I see reactions here and it doesn't get all the way back up to there. And it looks something like this. And then, we sit there and then it starts pulling back like that. Okay, then I can confirm that area a little bit. All right. And then we're rotating back down. All right. So 667 on the ES futures, the futures market is 6,700. Right. That's a big psychological level. the market likes to move to big psychological levels. You see here on the ES futures, that's right there at 6,700. Okay. So if we can't get above 6,700 on the ES futures on SPY, that will be 667. Then that's still going to be a lower high set and we can rotate back down. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's go back into our 4 hour. So I actually like this motion because what does it look like for my, if y'all are following me, or if you know, if you're experienced, you already see it. What does that look like? A big flagpole, potential flag right up into that 50% of that retracement of this big drop. And then if that area holds true, there's the bear flag, right? It looks like that. Okay. Where would you be targeting, Dr. B? Back down to the low of Friday. That is your first target on flags. Okay. That is your first target. So if it starts failing right here and rotating and for whatever reason it gets stuck, it could sit up here for a little bit and then maybe it takes till Tuesday to do it, but gets up here and starts rotating, your target is back down at 650, right? Your target is back down at 650. Okay. Now, another thing that I like to do as well is mark kind of, maybe I go back a little bit further. And if I start seeing it fail back underneath 660, what if you can't catch the top and you don't want to top ticket and you just, maybe you got work or something like that. And then you see a candle that's back underneath 660 like that, right? Well, now you've confirmed more of a bear flag. It's fallen back underneath what Wednesdays and Tuesdays lows. And then there it is, right? Okay. So to answer the question I said earlier, I'm not really bullish until we can get back over the tariff high, right? You can take little scouts back up, but I'm not really bullish trying to hold swing calls, thinking we're going back to 680, 690, 700 plus until we really get back over this tariff high, which would be roughly closing a day above 674. Like getting a big green candle close above that 674 like that. All right. It needs to look more like that for me to get a little bit more comfortable because everyone thought it was going to happen here and it could not close up there and we rotated back down. All right. So there's my SPY analysis. Now, what if you can't catch the top there and come down and you want to trade it back down? If you are a break of previous day low kind of trader, all right, then you would wait for this break of 650 and the low end of the range is going to be into 640 and 644. Okay. Now let me show you what that looks like on the ABC pattern. Okay. The ABC pattern is what we use, Fibonacci extension, to allow a potential stock or index in this case to get to its final level that they want it to get it to, right? We know that stocks don't go straight up in a line. Some do, and then they come straight back down. But positive stocks and indexes like to staircase their way up and staircase their way down. All right. So here's our ABC pattern. 1, 2, and then the third would be down here into this 648. And let's actually do it from here. Okay. And that takes us down into this 638, 640 level. Now by when? So is that going to happen this week? It could potentially happen. Just say people want to take profits going into Thanksgiving and they're like, man, I want to take some of these profits and spend on Black Friday. I got Christmas shopping going on. I want to start mitigating taxes, whatever it is. They could, right? So what does that look like? It looks like a B, C, and then maybe this final leg down here to this D pattern all the way down at the bottom. Okay. So that is still staircasing lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. And if this starts failing and this gets, underneath here, back underneath 660, takes out 650, we got 640 in sight. There's really nothing in this zone. All right. So I turn on my volume profile as well. And it should be on Robinhood Legend, right? So volume profile just shows us where our high volume nodes are. And I like to look at it on a daily, typically, or on a weekly, but daily is a good look here. You can see this high volume node is where buyers and sellers are battling, right? And who took control? That top wick, sellers. So when it gets low volume, right, that is when it starts flushing or going to its next target because it wants to get to where those next high volume nodes are. So if I zoom that out, look at this low volume area that's in here. Where's the next high volume nodes? Down into 640 and down into 644, right? So in this zone, right? They're trying to hang on right here in battle. But as it gets lower into these lower volume areas, okay, there's nothing there, right? There's no volume. There's no one wants to pick it up. There's no sellers want to step out of the way and buyers don't want to pick it up in that low volume area. They'll just wait to here, right? So that is the thesis that I have, that this might not be done and it's trying to get to its final leg, right? Its final leg. So at that final leg, that's where I get a little bit more interested in saying, hey, this is maybe where a little bit more comfortable I feel, swinging it maybe off of here and back to the highs or something like that, right? Maybe just a little bit more comfortable where we could get that rotation back up, right? So, but we still got to take out that low, okay? Still got to take out that low. It has not broken, all right? Cool. We're good on SPY. I'll speed it up here, but as y'all know, if y'all been here before, I take a full analysis on the S&P 500 ETF SPY just so everyone gets an overall sentiment. And then when we move on to things, you're like, man, okay, well, what associates with SPY? Relative strength or relative weakness? Okay. What are the weak stocks? If the market gets weak, those will accelerate. And what are the strong stocks that might hold up? And if the market maybe gets a little strength Monday and Tuesday, maybe some positive news comes in, something like that, then those stocks might run a little bit, right? Cool. Let me check the chat. Everybody good? All right, cool. Still good? Let's jump to the Qs. Okay. We know that tech, and I'll say this if you didn't understand, that SPY is stronger than the Qs right now. Why? Because healthcare and finance are still kind of holding up, right? We got consumer discretionary still kind of trying to pick up some steam. There's still some stocks that are holding up that S&P 500 because it's the top 500 companies, not just majority tech, right? So we see that the QQQ is underneath these tariff lows and this tariff high is all the way back up here at 612. So it's accelerating to the downside a little bit quicker, right? So if you do trade indices and you trade SPY, stick with it. Just know that, maybe the Qs might be a little bit more aggressive to the downside quicker. But what happens is the NASDAQ or the Qs typically lead the market. They lead the way. So SPY is lagging, but if Qs start accelerating, SPY will also get weak as well because those companies are also included in the S&P 500, right? So if semiconductors, if tech gets even more weak, if some of the strong tech companies like Apple and Google, right, start pulling back a little bit along with those others, still Meta, still weak, things of that nature, then we could have that roll back down, okay, a little bit quicker. All right. So Qs, we've got a clear line in the sand here, that high volume node sitting around that nice psychological level of 600. We can see that we pushed up into 598 and some change, and then sold back off back underneath that tariff high. We can see this candle structure, right, is still indecisive and also, in my opinion, weak because it fell back underneath those previous support levels and it fell back underneath this tariff low. Okay. And it reclaimed it. So it's still holding 590. So it might want to try that high again, like we talked about on the SPY, but just notating what type of candle that is, just like I did here when that dead cat bounce happened last Friday, right? Kind of like that. It looks roughly the same, popped up in there, and then the next, day roll back over lower. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's jump into the 4 hour here. And you can see the after hours. It's already kind of trickling up. The futures market is pulling back up. It's going to try to retest previous day high. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that previous day high, which is at 597. So that's an area of interest I want to watch. If it breaks above previous day high, I'm going to look into 600 and then 603, right? I like to get right now because the overall market is so volatile. What I would suggest is giving that like $2 to $3 range, right? So it's not as tight as it used to be. SPY and QQQ are moving $8 to $10. That's a lot, right? If this is your first year of true trading, or getting into it, this is not normal, right? If you've been in Leverage University or seen me trade back in 2021, 2022, right, during that Biden market, all right, the SPY was moving $3, maybe 4, right? So this is very wide. You can make a lot of money, but you got to give it a little space, a little room, lower your position sizing if you're going to trade the indexes, right? Because you can make a lot of money with a little amount, right? So I'm saying that to say that if it breaks above previous day high and we get a candle and it starts shooting up here like that off open, right? You can catch a little scalp, break a previous day high. That's your strategy, 598, and then take it up to 60, maybe 600, and then try to take it up to 602, 603. But then as it gets up here, you've got to be mindful of where it's headed. And it's right back into these previous lows that turn into resistance, which is right around 603. Okay. Right around 603. Okay. Like, look at this candle right here. This used to be a solid green candle. Right. Went all the way up to 606, which is the top end level, and sold all the way back to 596. So moved $10 down on that 1 4-hour candle. Right. So just be mindful of your levels. This is a day trader's scalper's market right now. Okay. Everybody good on cues? Maybe give it 5 in the chat if I'm doing well so far. Everybody following along? Everything good? Marking it up? Okay. Cool. So I got previous day high. If it rejects there, might look there, but the higher it goes, the better I like. Right? The higher it goes because everything's been working on pops, big pops, and rejects. Right? Big pop, bigger reject. Right? So the higher it goes, the more I like the reject. For that potential move. Okay. So Q's still weak. Let's look at IWM. Okay. The one level I want to watch on IWM is going to be 238. Okay. 238. Now IWM is a little bit stronger than the overall market simply because there still are some Fed speakers that are still highlighting that there could be a possibility of a rate cut on the December 10th. Whatever that Wednesday is, FOMC meeting. So I think that's December 10th, I believe. So December 10th is going to be our next FOMC meeting for that rate cut. So it's either going to be a pause or a very, very slight rate cut if they change their sentiment very quickly and start seeing positive data. Again, we're in extreme fear, right? So anything that they say positive, like, hey, we actually like the data, let's give a rate cut, then the market will most likely shoot back to the upside and IWM will start shooting back even faster and start coming back up into that range. Okay. Back up into 242, back up into this high volume node of 246. All right. So 238 this week on IWM is going to be the line in the sand. Okay. Because right now, as you can see on this daily, it's in this kind of pop, fade, pop, fade, pop, fade, pop. Does it fade? Or does it take out the previous day, or excuse me, in this, previous day high, okay, which will be right around 238. Now, what makes me a little bit more confident potentially that this is going to go down? I told my community, I'm like, yeah, I like IWM coming down into this 225 low volume area, right? There's a little gap down there. I understand that there's a gap up here. So that's just based on sentiment. Right? If the sentiment that is not necessarily good, right, about rate cuts, or we see a little bit more fear in the market, or it's just not getting that boost, then IWM, in my opinion, will start rotating and coming and looking like that. Right? So don't get too horned up just yet on IWM, but I do like that a little bit better if the market continues to show structure to the downside. Okay. Where I would flip my script if I see a big candle and IWM's like, hey, they said rate cuts, and we start seeing IWM push back above 240, right? Like that, then that's a change of direction, right? Previous highs rotated, and if it doesn't rotate right off that 238 and rotate back down, okay, then it's going to start breaking out like that. Okay, so do not be oblivious if you are kind of in that same sentiment that I am with IWM around that 238. Okay. Now, again, IWM, if we turn on our moving averages, did close back above the daily 100. So as y'all know, I like the moving averages. I like trading off of daily moving averages. The closer it is to some moving averages, I kind of want to pay closer attention. So if we go back on SPY and we got the moving averages, look here. See how it's holding that daily 100? So there's your target 650. If it breaks that, that's breaking the daily 100 as well, and that's a flush, right? But as long as it's below this daily 20, daily 50, and weak, that's still weak, right? But if you look at this IWM candle, right, it closed back above that daily 100, but it's still in this channel. So if it fails back underneath 234.50 or 235, then that's where I would get a little bit more aggressive and saying, okay, it's failing back underneath the daily 100. We can start getting that. Okay. So as always, like the last video, which is getting a lot of traction, talking about marking. So what I like to do is mark sometimes my daily levels as well, just so when I get in my smaller time frames, I know what that is. Okay. So if I come here and mark that, it would look like this. All right. A daily 200. Cool. So if I see IWM pushing up and then failing back below that 235 like that, I'm like, okay, that's the daily 200. I can take it back down here like that. And there we go. All right. Get back the whole previous Friday move. All right. SMH. SMH is the semiconductor ETF. A lot of people love trading semiconductors. You're also maybe worried, or when's the dip going to come on my NVIDIA shares or semiconductor shares or AMD shares? And we can see here that this semiconductor sector is still looking like the NASDAQ. It's still looking like Qs, almost identical to Qs, and there's some gaps below, right? If it breaks underneath there, like there's going to be some significant more downside on semiconductors, all right? As long as it's below that daily 50, that 338, cannot get necessarily bullish with call options confidently on semiconductors, as long as it's below that 338. All right. So if you see if you like trading semis, NVIDIA, AMD, INTC, Broadcom, so on and so forth, you'd probably want to have the SMH up alongside of it. You see SMH breaking back above this 238, back above 240 like that, then might want to be careful on some of the AMD shorts for puts or NVIDIA shorts for puts or whatever it might be. It might be trying to trek back up to those highs. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this daily 50. It's right there in that zone. All right. Let me check the chat. Everybody good? 555 still rolling along. Cool. Here for the turkey and gravy. Yeah. Seems like we got some new people, so welcome in everybody. Again, really quick, if you weren't here earlier, rolling through the SPY, QQQ, IWM. Now we're on the SMH. We're about to go to our individual stocks. Now's the time. If you want to put your individual stock down below, you want me to cover, do some technical analysis on, some opinions. It could be a long-term investment. It could be trading-wise, whatever it is. Just tell me down below in the chat, hey, Brian, can you take a look at X, Y, and Z stock for trading this week? Or trading options, or hey, when do you think is a decent buy opportunity? Can you give me some levels on this stock because I want to buy some shares. So there's the format. Put it down below in the chat. All right. Some setups I like this week. Let's touch on the main tech stocks. So on the left-hand side, I like to color code. I've got the blue, which is our main kind of tech stocks, Mag 7, Mag 10, whatever you want to include in there. But our main tech stocks that we have. And then in purple, I've sectored off kind of the semiconductors, right? Anything associated with NVIDIA, I've kind of sectored that off. I know Palantir is not necessarily a semiconductor, but anything in purple, I've sectored off as they kind of move with NVIDIA a little bit more. And they're kind of associated with chips in some type of way, okay? So anything in blue right here, let's cover, has been fairly strong, has been holding up. There's two strong stocks right now that have been holding up. And I'm going to put those right next to each other, is Google and Apple. Right? I've been talking about Google for a while. Back at 150 on Google when no one was paying attention to it, Google and Apple were literally the two laggers. Right? And anytime you see those companies lagging and everyone's talking about Microsoft going crazy, Meta going crazy, so on and so forth, Amazon even, lagging behind a little bit, they will pick up some steam. And now they are the leaders. right? There's the rotation extremely. Now everyone's like, dang, Google, like I thought you were an old head, man. What's going on? Maybe I need to maybe I need to jump over to a Google phone. No, I'm just kidding. I love Google. I think, YouTube is our future. I think that, that is one of the main drivers for sure. But what I've been doing personally on Google is I've been shorting Google, right? I think David's still in here. I've been shorting Google. It's been an amazing, in my opinion, short opportunity. If you've been making money on calls on Google, that's awesome. The reason why I've been shorting Google personally, and you do not have to do this if you're not comfortable, if you're like, that doesn't make any sense, I don't see that, that's okay, right? Trade with what you see. That's what I try to teach anyone in Leverage University or anyone that's associated or talk to me in a one-on-one is like, what do you feel most comfortable trading? Start taking those trades on your own, or if you need confirmation, like check in with me if you're in the community, like, hey, Brian, like looking to take this trade. What do you think? I might not take it, but great. It looks good to me. I just don't see what you're seeing. I don't like that feel. So I'm not going to take that trade. Right. So what I've been liking personally on Google is one of two trades. Okay. It is the strongest stock right now in the stock market. Okay. So does it make sense to short it? No. Right. But from a risk to reward stance, Google is hard for it to take off if the market's not taking off. Does that make sense? So what I've been liking on Google is this. It's been giving these gap ups overnight. So it gaps up in the morning and then I can catch a short off of the top end and then rotate it back down. And it's a pretty easy trade, right? But I've got to be careful because at any point the market can, and Google just go like this, right? So Google just take off and go like that. But if you can see right there, it did it. And then it gave the pullback and it did it. And then it gave the pullback and it's kind of trickling up again one more time. And then it can give the pullback. So I've been liking trading the pops and fades on Google personally. And I do like that it still has unfilled gaps very close. So Google could pull back to 290. And if I look at these extended hours here, I can see that in the gray area, how do you know there's going to be a gap up in the morning? Because if I see it rotating back up higher in that gray area, kind of like what it did right here, overnight, I know there's going to be a gap. Boop. I already know my trade first thing in the morning, right? So if I see Google rotating higher in the morning, I'm just going to let it go. I know there's going to be a gap and I might rotate it back down, right? So I'm going to mark those highs on Google. I want to be very careful that it might want to go to 310 on this trend line, okay? This on this trend line, it might want to go to 310, 315, something like that if I rotate back out, right? So be very careful with doing this on Google unless maybe you're in the community or unless you see what I'm seeing, or if you see it, cool, take your own trade. But that's kind of my trade idea on Google. I don't like taking new all-time high breakouts. That's just not my trading style. There's a lot of traps and new all-time high breakouts. But if it does break out above new all-time highs, just know it's going probably to 310, 315. All right. So if you're that type of trader, break and retest some new all-time highs. 306 is your level. Break that, take it higher. All right. Just notate that Google is the strongest stock in the stock market right now, as far as Mag 7 tech goes. Okay. Apple, second strongest right now, because if you notice, when that big sell-off happened, what did Google really do? It still held up that trend. What did Apple do? Still held up this consolidation. Right. But in my opinion, do I think it can hold up much longer? Not necessarily, because they ran tremendously. So I do believe that Google and Apple will be those kind of rotational things where you might see, in the short term, right, some profit taking on Google and Apple and maybe rotating it back into the semiconductor sector, which is taking a hit. Right. So everyone that's in Google and Apple rotating it higher, they may take some profits. You'll see those pull back and then you'll see the semiconductors rotate back up. That's just what I'm suspecting, but that's just my opinion. Starting to notate here that on the weekly, Apple is getting a little bit overextended. It has a little bit more on the daily. So Apple, I would consider this more bullish consolidation, right? Big flag up there. And then Apple's trying to do this. All right, it's trying to get back to that 277, trying to take out that 280, and trying to go to 300 like Google did. Okay, so those two stocks are bullish and very bullish. Be careful on them if you were looking at potentially shorting, or if you're waiting for a breakout. if the market gets strong, those are your two stocks that will probably go first. All right. Amazon. This is another one too that I kind of like the setup on it. I was really eyeing this over the weekend. I was like, man, I really have this. I've been really trading well on this short bias, pops, fades, pops, fades, pops, fades. But this Amazon looks pretty good down here in this support range. And we know that Amazon, anytime people get a dip on Amazon, they're looking to pick it up. So if anything, I like this as a potential upside trade if the market trends up and doesn't give it that fade back down. I like Amazon probably the best because if Amazon breaks out of previous day high, okay, so I'm starting with my bullish setups for anybody, okay? I'm starting for my bullish setups. Amazon, in my opinion, if it breaks above previous day high, right, it's going to come through this low volume area and your target is right to that 227, okay? And you know Amazon, when it kind of gets moving a little bit, it can get moving and there's a little bit of a gap fill back up into 230 like that, okay? So Amazon could be that rotation for a potential call scalp or a call trade that I do like if we get a break of previous day high, which is right at roughly 223. Okay, just say 223, breaks above 223 confidently. I think you got 225, that psych level, but I think personally it's just trying to go back to 227. Okay, so put Amazon on your high alert that could be pretty nice. There's really nothing back above that previous day high. If you can see straight down and then potentially straight back up if you're looking for a day trade. Okay, that could be pretty nice on the call side. If this holds up, if the market holds up, if it wants to trend higher, if we see SPY, QQQ green in the morning, Amazon could have that nice pop, right? So that one could be a nice little scalp, break a previous day high, and then take it back up to 225 and then 227. Okay. Maybe leave a runner potentially, right? Maybe leave a runner for this little gap fill if we get that, but there you go. All right. Microsoft, not really interested in any day trades on it personally. It is in this interesting area right here. Previous highs approaching that 465 area, but I think Microsoft, this nice double top here, a lot of overhead resistance. It might have a little recovery, but I would probably be more interested in Microsoft coming here and then we fade lower because I do believe the overall market has lower, pop up higher and then fade back like that. Right? That's personally what I would be looking for on Microsoft as far as a trade idea, is more of a pop and a fade back down. But just because of how strong that candle is, I don't really see any buyers off of it yet that have confirmed. Right. And then we got this gap. We got this low volume area through this straight up move. I really think Microsoft is trying to come back into the 400s, sub 400s personally. All right. Some of you have mentioned Netflix as of recently. Netflix is fairly weak. I've got a bottom end level. If I look at this monthly and weekly candle, the next development area here for buyers is right at around like 90. Right. Maybe sub 90 if we come down into, maybe the mid 80s. So, it could be, since the stock split, it's just been selling off, which I think is a good thing personally. It missed earnings, but Netflix is not going anywhere. So if you want to trade it, it's back below these highs here. If it continues back below that 106, right, you could take Netflix, look left, back down into 90, maybe back down into 100 and leave a runner. But I think Netflix is trying to go down there personally. Right, you kind of see towards the end of Friday how it was rejecting, reject, and that's right at that 106 area. Little weak move here, and then just start falling. All right, first target psychological level of 100, and then down into the 90s. So I think it could be a decent weak short opportunity. On the weak side, Netflix is still severely weak. If you are trading this week, like I said before, maybe if you can, some of these get next week contracts, right? Obviously, some of them are pricey for maybe a Google or an Apple or whatnot, spending $300-$400. In my opinion, I like contracts underneath $200 for the way I trade personally, but because I like to stack on and add on and add on and add on. But I would look at next week contracts if you want to trade safe and trade nice and not have to worry about it. But if Netflix is weak, take it down to 100. Contracts, since they're split, fairly cheap. Cool. All right, Meta. At this point, I would just say be picking up some Meta shares. If you're dollar cost averaging on Meta, I think that's the opportunity right now. I'm not really interested in trading it. Personally, it's at a buy zone number 1, sitting right at sub $600. I think we can get a recovery off of it. Do I think it's a strong enough recovery to start filling the gap all the way back up? Maybe with some positive news, but I like Meta better at 500. I think there's some opportunity if we take off the levels here and go back to our daily and zoom out. There's some gaps to fill down there, right? So I like Meta better, getting a weak pop and then rotating all the way down here like that. I like that better for a bigger leap or a bigger swing opportunity. I think right here is kind of some scalps and just some share buying opportunities. Again, like always, those leveraged ETFs are a great way to invest in these bigger companies if you don't have a lot of money to invest. METU is on discount. If you see here on Meta, when it was at the highest point, almost to 800, METU was at $50. So you can begin picking up some shares of METU and getting a double up plus triple up plus quadruple up whenever Meta decides to turn around. And you know that everyone can at least afford one share of this, right? Multiple shares of this, potentially get 100 shares of this, right? So I would look at METU if you're trying to get up to your 100 shares, if you do not have the funds to invest into shares with full Meta. All right. Cool. All right, let me check the chat. Anybody got anything? Let me take a break here and get to them. Apple looked like it's a bull flag. Correct. Yep. Looked like if it breaks 276, it will break to 280. Yep. That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. Cool. All right. So I'll tell you my bias towards the end of the video today, which we got about maybe 20 more minutes. So we're right at our hour point roughly since we've started. So got about 15 minutes left, 15, 20, and then we'll get up out of here. A couple more. We'll go through NVIDIA, since that's everyone's concern / wondering what NVIDIA is going to do. If I turn on my moving averages here, NVIDIA, if you can see on Friday, it closed below. And we talked about that SMH. So in the back of my mind, as I look at this purple section, I know that the SMH, the semiconductor ETF, is still severely weak, right? So for anyone trying to catch a bottom on NVIDIA, I think NVIDIA personally, as long as it's below 184, 181, 184, it's still weak. That is a previous all-time high that NVIDIA was just struggling around. See, it got back above it and then pulled back, and then that's where it took off, is above that 184. So this whole area here is resistance. So you can get your NVIDIA shares. I've said it multiple times. I personally like NVIDIA at 150, right? 150 is that final target level. Even if it pulls all the way back up here, I think that's still, which sounds crazy because people are going to be like, Brian, what the heck are you talking about, bro? It's like, I'm telling you. I think Dave is the only one in here that believes me. It's like, I'm telling you, even if NVIDIA comes all the way down here and goes all the way back up here, right? I still believe that that is a lower high and shorts are going to be right back in. And that's even a bigger short position and come all the way back down here like this. I'm telling you, like my final target where NVIDIA is a better value is back down here, right? So it looks very similar to this pullback, right? See this pullback right here, it goes up and then it gets weak and then it comes here and people are like, there's the bottom, no, pops here and then all the way back down to our final target, right? So I've still got NVIDIA at 150, 140. What does that mean for you? That simply means if you want NVIDIA shares or you want a bigger swing opportunity on NVIDIA, I would wait for those lower end levels. Other than that, still going to be pops and fades below these moving averages, right? I'm just saying that because I don't want my folks to be out in these streets and everybody's like, NVIDIA is going back to 300. I'm like, do you know what market cap that is for NVIDIA to go to 300 right now by the end of the year? Like, let's be real, people. When I hear that stuff, it's like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, Bitcoin went from 15,000 to 126. How much more do you want in that time frame? You're just late. It will go to 200, 300, a million eventually. right? And then it pulls back and it's like, oh my gosh, right? So just like let the video pull back to 150. All right. Cool. AMD. I like AMD even more because we know that it's got to fill its gap. It's close enough to the gap. It's got to fill it. It will fill it. So that means AMD back down to 160 minimally, maybe even back down to 150, which is this daily 200 moving average. So there's your bottom end of the range. How does it get there? Pops and fades, pops and fades, pops and fades. Okay. Or the market gets extremely weak and we get that, press under new lows on the Qs and SPY. And then we'll see AMD start pulling back through that gap. Very similar to what Amazon did. It will look exactly like Amazon if you need a comparison. There's the gap on Amazon right there, right? From that OpenAI deal, fluke, pull all the way back down, right? Through that gap. It will look just like that, okay? So AMD, still a lot of opportunity on it for pops and fades. Where would my entry be? Probably as long as it stays below this daily 50, which is right at 208. So if we get a pop into 208, right, then that would be kind of an area of interest, but it has pulled back a lot, right? AMD could recover all the way back up to the daily 20 and still set a lower high, right? It's already, the move was up here. The put option was really up here. So it gets a little tricky down in here because everyone's going to be thinking just enter puts down here and then it pops all the way back up like that. And then that's the short entry, right? That's what I would actually like. Right, give us higher so I can get it back for the bigger move like that. All right, y'all see it now? So when you're trying to take it to your final target, if you're trading put options, right? If you like the downtrend, if you like these pullbacks, if you like red, like I personally do, I like trading the red side because I think it's just more accelerated. I think it pays very, very well when it gets accelerated, right? If you're trying to get it down there, you would ideally want, give me green so I can get a position that I can control up here, up against these top end resistances and then rotate back down. So that's what I like to mark when I'm trying to get it to final level, is trying to get the most recent big position that I can, which is, in my opinion, right around there. And then maybe right here. So there's my ideal level, 224, 225, and maybe this pop into this 215. Right. So you can already see how it's looking now. Pop up in there or pop up in there. Right. So I can get my position and go down. Okay. But the other one is break of new lows. Fails back underneath 200. Just can't even pop. No, there's no buyers. Fail underneath 195. You're getting a flush down probably into 180 and it's just going down to the gap. Right. 180. 170, 160, so on and so forth. There's just no volume. Look at that. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. All right. Check the chat really quick. We're good. I believe anything you say about NVIDIA. Just studying it, man. Just studying it. Even Billy asked if he's still on here. Billy asked me via private message. He was like, Brian, what do you think's happened on NVIDIA? Billy, what did I say? I said pop and drop. Pop and drop. That's what I believe. It'll have a great earnings. It's not going to miss, but pop and then drop. Because everyone thinks it's going to go crazy. And big money's going to trap them. All right. All right. Palantir. Palantir. I kind of gave Palantir on the video yesterday. It's in support. Don't really have much on here. I haven't really been trading Palantir as of late. I kind of missed the trade there, so I'm not really interested. But I like that it's sitting at above its daily 200. 150 could be your support level if you want to trade Palantir back up. Just look for a break of previous day highs, maybe trade it up back into 165 and then 170, and then we'll adjust from there. But Palantir sitting underneath this range here at 170, 169. That was the breakdown point. So break, retest. So it's going to try to retest somewhere around those high 160s. Okay, so there's your recovery on Palantir back into that level. Oracle. I know some people have been looking at Oracle. Oracle is just extremely weak. It's kind of like Netflix. All right, it's in support right here, roughly around 200. And I don't think that's strong enough to hold. And Oracle's got more gap to fill. Okay, low volume area here, straight up move. Oracle's just got nothing underneath 208. right? Underneath 208, underneath 200. Oracle's got nothing until maybe 180. I think Oracle back to 160. So just wait for the proper entries. Trent, and he asked this question about Oracle. You just gotta, when you know where it's going, you just have to find the proper entry. That's the key. Is I can tell people where it's going, but where do you enter for that trade, right? Is what's the key? All right. Robinhood, very interesting off this 100 level. This is the level we were waiting on Robinhood. We know that Bitcoin is going to probably recover a little bit off of 80. It's not going to flush through 80 that quickly. So 80,000 on Bitcoin. Robinhood typically moves with Bitcoin. It's in a support level of 100. I think it gets a nice bounce off of here. So Robinhood could be, that nice little recovery trade back to the upside. So I think that could gain some strength as people are like, hey, okay, you chill out, Bitcoin, right? It's 80,000. Let's chill out. Let's hold up right here before we go any lower. Okay. So I might take a look at Hood. My SoFi people, SoFi still got my price targets back. As long as it's below these moving averages, just look at those moving averages and look at the next one. Price target down back into 18 and 20, in my opinion, is a final target on SoFi. Even if it pops back up to 28 and 30, it's still underneath the moving averages, which is why it's important. So as long as it's underneath these daily 50s, and great, pick up some dips, pick up some shares. But again, still setting lower highs, it could pop and then fade. And there we go. There's our final target. Right. So I've got the final target of SoFi back down into $18 as a true, like, hey, capitulation fall pickup. Anywhere in this little fall here, pick up some shares, light size, and go from there, in my opinion. Any pop is right now going to be faded. All right. I'll give two more. Unless y'all have anything, I'll give two more. Look at Uber and Lyft. Uber, Lyft. Those are sitting in some interesting spaces. All right. Those are sitting in some interesting spaces. At $80, I kind of want to just watch it and see what it does. I think Uber well above $100 stock, right? As we know. So Uber could have some rotation back up. Like it's got some buyers off of that level. Look what it did last time at 80, back to 94, back to 100. And it typically happens pretty quick. Right. So if you're not paying attention to it, like, this is already starting to kind of rotate, as you can see, rotating. It's at 84 after hours. It breaks above that 84. It could go to right to 86, back to 89. And then there's a gap up there. Right. And it looks like it's just trying to rotate back to these moving averages like that. So Uber, Lyft. Rotated right back to our point of 19. That was our 18-19 level. You can see here that Lyft that's a support level. Right at 19, break, retest. Don't chase it. Break, retest, sitting at 19. If you've never seen this before, there is a gap, a major gap on, come on, show it. Maybe I'll show it on a daily really quick. Trying to get the folks out of here. There we go. Look at that gap on Lyft. So if you've heard anyone, including myself, talking about Lyft, it's not just it's because they're profitable now. It's because they're following kind of that Uber model. And also on the charts, it's got a gap to fill all the way back up to 30, 32, right? And sitting at 19. So that's roughly, a 60, 70% gain from just 19. So pay attention to Lyft off of this 19. Maybe 15, it comes back to there, but would love for it to hold up 19 and then take that back out and then something like that. I think it's more of a 2026 position play, in my opinion. I think it's getting kind of geared up for 2026. So this could be a nice 2026 play for Lyft as long as it holds up 19 and we continue to see that hold. All right. Anything else that y'all would like to see? I want to keep my promise and get everybody out of here. Tell me it's going back to 80. Oh my goodness. Yeah. If it gives us that again, it's Leap Central. Leap Central. The bottom end is 120. 120, 130. But I don't want to scare folks. That's the true bottom, in my opinion. That's the same move that it made from 150 back to 80. So 120, 130 is kind of my true bottom on the video. Cool. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. That's it. That's all I got. What I will do is it's getting a little bit darker here, so I apologize for the lighting. My big light won't fit behind here in the new spot, so I got to get a panel light. So if you've seen my other videos, I usually have a panel light in the back, so I will get those. So the lighting's all good for the fall time, so you don't, I wouldn't want to look at this. But where you can go from here afterwards, if you're on here for the first time and you're like contemplating about joining Leverage University, please take advantage of the Black Friday. For anyone in Leverage University or anyone that becomes affiliate, just click on wap.com/Leverage University. And you can get your affiliate link or just reach out to me and say, hey, Brian, can I refer someone to you? Like, I'd love for them to come in. I've been trying to tell them about it. You can become an affiliate. There's a percentage for that. All right. So where else can you go? If you don't want to pay, don't want to get in, don't want to get anywhere, but you want to be a little bit closer, there is a newsletter. Okay. So what I did, I want to show you what that is, because I'm like, man, how can people just get a little bit more information? I can feel closer to the community. Here we go. WAP Universe there. Let's see if it pulls up. Okay. So you'll see these things here. And what I did is I created a leverage newsletter. Okay. Leverage newsletter to essentially where you can just join and get, hey, when's he going live on YouTube? Is there, any promotions going on? Hey, I got a question for him really quick and I don't know how to reach out. I don't want to get lost in the DMs, but you want to feel a part of it. Just join the Leverage University newsletter there. You can get some little trade updates and things like that. But yeah, just join there and would love to have you inside. Okay, cool. If y'all do need one-on-one support, because there have been some people that reached out for that, you're more than welcome to reach out. I do some one-on-one consults, things of that nature, a little bit of 6-week mentorship, and would love to have you inside any type of way. If you want to stay on here for free, that is perfectly fine. I want to give avenues for people to join. All right. Use code Black Friday at checkout and we're good to go. Chat. Let's see. Anyone chatting? Thank you. Yeah, no problem, man. No problem, Keith. No problem. Thank y'all so much for the kind support. It's getting dark. I apologize for the lighting. We'll get that fixed going into the holidays. And until next time, you have a great week. Trade safe. And I'll see y'all in live trading first thing in the morning. All right.